Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's presentation. Before I go ahead and introduce our presenters, I want to cover a bit of housekeeping information with all of you. Today's presentation will be recorded, so if you have a need for review or wanted to share this presentation with a colleague, keep an eye on your inbox in the days following the event for a link to the recording, and we'll make sure we get that out normally within about 24 hours. Also, if you have any questions or comments for our panelists, please feel free to direct those via the question or chat window, and we'll do our best to address everybody's questions and comments as time comes in. So once again, thank you for joining us for our presentation on speeding the adoption of work from home practices. Today we are joined by Jason E. Smith and Thomas Lahaussois, who are going to take us through today's presentation. And I believe Jason's going to start us off. Jason, you want to take us through?
Thank you, Ray, and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining our webinar on this hot topic. Those of you who know Liquidware know that we've been in the adaptive workspace management area for quite some time, since the beginning. As a matter of fact, we were founded over 10 years ago. Our mission was to help transform desktops to virtual type of a desktop to desktops that are more agile. And since that time, it's become our mission to help you with any type of Windows desktop transformation, physical to virtual, physical to physical. So you might be changing OS or hardware, or from one platform to the next. And we are key strategic alliance partners with Microsoft, Amazon, Citrix, and VMware. So largely everything that you hear today applies to all those platforms. Of course, Microsoft Windows being the tie that binds, but the platforms across there too for virtual desktops and server-based computing. Our Liquidware adaptive workspace management suite truly helps you adapt workers quickly, especially in this time where many organizations are looking to have more people work from home and transition them. Our suite reduces the cost and complexity of desktop environments. It enables desktop virtualization and next generation workspaces to be employed cost effectively, and it helps deliver and manage Windows at scale. So it's ideal for enterprises looking for a solution. So what are we hearing from companies, businesses, organizations? What are they doing for business continuity, especially during this world crisis that we seem to be going through, to help businesses continue to be able to do daily functions, to carry out what they need to do to continue to be viable throughout here as seamless as possible? In the last several weeks, we've heard from organizations that are taking approaches like buying new laptops and imaging them and shipping them to people's homes, because maybe largely they were users connected to corporate desktop towers and things of that area. We've heard of companies just simply making sure that users are connected to a VPN alone, and then using local apps or in conjunction with things like G Suite or Office 365. We've heard of one-offs of enabling remote control of individual corporate PCs back at the office, which implies that you have to have a PC or a laptop at home to remotely control your laptop. We've heard of organizations simply trying to copy files and directories to cloud services, user-authored data that's on endpoints and devices that were left behind in offices, or simply logging in, remote control, emailing files to yourself and then receiving them back at another email directory. But today we're going to focus on how organizations can take a more seamless approach and employ full solutions such as virtual desktops, either hosted on-prem that you can remotely access, or through cloud-hosted desktops and services such as Amazon, Citrix, VMware, of course, Microsoft with their new WVD offering, and others. So we'll focus largely on the more seamless approach, how you can provide a work from home environment to your users with all the applications they need, their familiar user persona intact, all their settings, so you do not skip a beat. Of course, this implies that you may have already had something in motion, but this can give you background for not only the current situation that we're in, if you're deploying a Citrix or a VMware type solution right now, but it can also give you a view to the future if you're working on one of just a piecemeal approach from some of the things outlined before to a more complete approach. Now, I do want to just verbally right here take a moment and say we'd love any questions throughout today's webinar. The other thing I want to do is talk about some use cases. Today, we will finalize this webinar and talking about a real world use case where a shipping and logistics company had to employ a work from home strategy within the last few weeks, and we were able to help them meet that demand. But we're also hearing from, let me give you just a few other use cases. One of the world's largest cruise lines within the last couple of weeks contacted us, and they were actually going to have their administrative people, like the people that take reservations and their accounting department things, more of those people work from home, so they needed to rapidly scale up their VDI deployment, and they needed additional licenses from Liquidware of our adaptive workspace management suite to be able to manage the user experience of those to ensure the desktops they were delivering were quality desktops. Another one that we heard from in the past week is a large metro transportation authority located on the eastern seaboard, right in the heart of where our government is located. They had a deployment of 1,000 virtual desktops because they were asking up to 4,000 additional users to work from home. They needed to scale up their Citrix environment really quickly. We were able to help them and are in the middle of helping them scale up and onboard 4,000 more users so they can work from home seamlessly. We're hearing from others like a large oil company based out in the Oklahoma area, where they have needs where users have left several tens of thousands of desktops on their desktops with user authored data on them and with their user persona on them, and they want to switch really quickly to a cloud hosted desktop solution. So they need to harvest the data off there, and we're going through scenarios and ways that they might be able to do that to get their users back up and running quick. And the one that Thomas is going to focus on is a shipping and logistics company, and that's the one we'll round out today. So we'll hold the details of that one back, but you'll hear how we've helped them in the last few weeks get rapidly deployed on a solution for seamless access. Liquidware is truly squarely in the middle of helping organizations through this crisis with our adaptive workspace management. The messaging you're hearing from us is nothing different than we've talked about since 2009. We have 3 solutions to help you do that. User environment management that helps deliver full-featured user environment management and their profile and their persona across desktops at a moment's notice. So when you have users log in, for example, to a new virtual desktop deployment or a burst scaling situation, they will recognize their desktop, they'll recognize their settings, and they'll have everything they need except for the applications. And that's where FlexApp, the next solution, can help deliver applications to desktops. Even if you've had them on-prem, it delivered them to the cloud without having to repackage them, even across Windows operating system environments. The third solution is a monitoring and diagnostic solution that has led the way in the virtual desktop industry called Stratusphere UX, user experience. You want to ensure that the user experience of that remote or work from home desktop is a quality desktop, and you can head off problems before they occur, and that you're able to have monitoring and diagnostics to make sure you have visibility, and you also make sure users are being productive in their environments. Thomas is going to show you some new reports out of Stratusphere that can help you with a work from home strategy, reports that you can roll out today if you're an existing customer of Liquidware, or that you can trial from us and you can roll out today, and you can trial and you can actually start to see these things with zero investment for a limited time. So we've got trial licenses of everything we'll mention today. Our entire suite works across virtual, cloud, and physical desktops. It's the tie that binds, really bridging together these environments really, really quickly, so you always have a seamless approach for disaster recovery and business continuity. All of our solutions that you'll hear today are very lightweight and easy to install. Within an hour to 3 hours for the full suite, you can have 1 to 3 of our solutions up and running in a proof of concept, and you can have them rolled out in a matter of days for your custom needs. They're easy to set up quickly. You can set them up. They can be hosted in cloud environments. There's no hardware investment that you need. You do need additional storage for Profile Unity, for example. You need a place to run a virtual machine, a virtual appliance rather, for Stratusphere for its reporting engine. But they are easy to spin up and easy to get going. And again, if you're not already a customer of Liquidware, you can trial our software, and there's a download. You can trial it for up to 15 days, and we can engage right today with a regional SE to get you up and going if our quick start guides don't get you 100% there right away. Today, we're going to divide this up into whether you're planning, onboarding, or in full production of a virtual desktop environment or a server-based computing environment like RDS or Citrix XenApp, for example. No matter what stage you're in, we can assist you. We're here to help. If you're planning that, we can rapidly help you plan, learn the machines that you have out there, or how they're being used, or how they've historically been used, to help you deliver applications seamlessly, to help you build that new environment, whether it's a brand new, net new virtual environment, or to know what applications need to be delivered. So it helps you design that base image as well, helps you right-size the environment. In the onboarding phase, we'll talk about how you can rapidly onboard users with a zero downtime migration. You can do this for a select group of users in your organization. You can identify them by group or by any other context-aware setting and apply things and have them off and running and transitioning to a new desktop with as little as one log off and one log on. And you'll see a quick demo, a condensed demo of how that's done today. Or if you're in production and you are growing and scaling, perhaps some of these use cases we spoke about earlier, where you're needing to burst scale for the next few weeks to have more users work from home. We'll be able to talk about some of those ways that we can help rapidly onboard those users, to attach applications, to monitor and troubleshoot those, and to scale and optimize those. So we'll talk about planning, onboarding, and production in the next few slides. Thomas?
Yes, thank you, Jason. So one of the first building block that Jason alluded to is visibility through Stratusphere UX. Stratusphere is delivered as a virtual appliance, and it's designed to track pretty much everything you need to know around a user workspace, whether it's physical or virtual, whether it's on premises or in the cloud. So we'll track information from different sources, and we'll store everything into a single database. A key point for us is correlation. So you can gain end-to-end visibility across the board, but giving you the ability to either look at it from a network perspective or connectivity, or an application, or a user, or a time, or looking at an entire population of users and understanding what, how much resource do they use, so more like usage information, or more, even sometimes more important, how they are doing. So more of a performance view into their day-to-day work. How do they access? How fast can they log in? How do they access the application? Is the application responding? How fast is the network? And so on and so forth. One of the first use case that customers in the journey to move users from point A to point B are faced with is an assessment, or the planning phase. Now, clearly in our situation today, this for many of our customers is too late. They didn't have time to prepare and plan and for migration. So instead, what we've seen is customers using Stratusphere at first to more in a capacity planning perspective, understanding how much resource they consume today. So maybe they move their users from the office to work from home, but they're leveraging an existing VDI or hosted application environment, Citrix or VMware. And at this point, they need to understand how much of capacity they're currently using. Are they at capacity or close by? But then understanding deeper, getting deeper information or insight into what's driving that usage, so they can make adjustments. A number of customers are expanding their infrastructures, or looking at way to expand it. Maybe they can't. So getting an understanding of when do you drive consumptions? Is there a way you can shift around resources to adjust to those peaks happening, whether it's the morning, whatever the scenario is, or even going deeper and understanding what application are draining most of the resource, and maybe giving the ability to turn off non-critical application, so you retain resources available for the most critical one. So in other words, trying to do the most with what you have. So capacity planning, it's also a tool that we're starting to see customers, it's still a bit early, but getting into what we're starting to see as phase 2 of the business continuity planning. They've reacted on day 1, moved the users, and now they're planning more of a medium-term solution. We figure out, depending on the countries, this is going to last 30 days, 45 days, etc. We reacted to the first needs. We've got the critical application loaded. Now we can start to see what can we get, whether it's unlocking cloud-based desktop or expanding their existing infrastructures, and understanding, okay, now that I'm getting that extra X amount of resource, what can I, what should I put in there, and what can I deliver for that? And back to you, Jason.
Thanks, Thomas. So to further the onboarding there, because Stratusphere and Profile Unity really work hand in hand to help you know what you're about to onboard, and then Profile Unity kicks in and is able to help you have a portable profile that will automate migrations. It goes far beyond that to pick up the profile persona, but it also picks up user-authored data as well. So if you've got that data that's sitting out there on legacy PCs or on the current PCs that you have, it can pick those up and get you in a best practice state of being. We're seeing that many organizations didn't have this prior to this current world crisis, to have more people work from home. They did not have best practices in place. At a minimum, even if you don't use Profile Unity, you should have redirected to a corporate file share or to cloud services, things like My Documents and My Pictures, things that users need and they produce, things that they need to be productive. Profile Unity automates that to a best practice. It will sync the files. It will let you know that they're complete within the management console, sort of like an oven thermostat. It lets you know that this group of PCs or this individual PC and this individual user sync those files across, and they're now no longer dependent on an individual PC's hard drive and such for their user-authored data, and it will cut that over into the registry area to when the user looks for My Documents. They're actually looking to the file share, or they're looking to a file service in the cloud. Profile Unity goes beyond that with full user environment management as well. Mostly today we're talking about the seamless experience in between, so it's more of a zero downtime migration. But once you are in an environment, it helps you with policy management well beyond group policies. It helps you do this on a context-aware basis. So if you're delivering apps, you can do it on a app-by-app user if you're using our Flex app, or if you're dropping off software as a service. Shortcuts to the proper group or department. For the example, the sales department might get something for Salesforce.com. The HR department may have a software as a service app icon dropped off on their desktop. And so you can use one base image and customize that along the way. That's shortcuts, but we can also do that with full-blown apps with Flex app as well. It includes application rights management, so you can also restrict and whitelist and blacklist things. Our profile disk can work hand in hand with this. We can also work hand in hand with FS Logics and their profile containers, and that's a solution from Microsoft, which treats a profile as largely it's a connected profile, largely looked at as a local profile to the OS. In other words, it's seamless in that regard. But it also, even our profile disk and FS Logics has some drawbacks. It performs like a local profile too. You can't granularly manage it as easy. If it gets corrupt, it needs to be blown out and replaced, and that's where our portability engine comes in, where we can restore the profile at a moment's notice, go cross OS. And by the way, Profile Unity supports any type of cloud storage, including Azure Blob, Amazon S3, and Google services. Okay, to summarize, Profile Unity can help you in the onboarding with a zero downtime migration. Literally, you need to have users log on their old legacy desktops only one time and log off. The profile and persona is harvested, and it can be saved up to something as simple as those object-based services I mentioned, or to on-prem storage that's accessible through a VPN. But even faster is when you do cloud services in that regard to home-based users. It's a smart profile. It doesn't get a lot of profile cruft or caches. We eliminate and leave that stuff behind. Only the parts of the profile the user needs to be productive. As I mentioned earlier, it does that user-authored data sync, harvest, and makes that available seamlessly and ideally to a centrally accessible area like the clouds mentioned here. And it goes across Windows operating systems. So you have one profile per user that can seamlessly adaptive workspace management. And that's where that comes from. Adapt at every login. Could be on the server OSs, could be on a Windows 10 multi-user OS, for example, or if you still have some Windows 7 laying around. It backs up the profile in up to 100 different versions in our portability and can be rolled back at a moment's notice as well. If the profile becomes corrupt or the user has tainted it in some way and accidentally deleted something. It causes instant user adoption, as you'll see today, of a platform when the user logs in Instead of having a generic desktop with no persona or applications, it works hand in hand also with FlexApp to have the applications they need in that environment. Now, let me just summarize how this works. If we start from the left over here, legacy Windows desktops, whatever you're using today, when Profile Unity is put in, it will assess what you've got there, or that works with Stratusphere hand in hand. Profile Unity will harvest and manage in the ongoing environment. Your user profiles applications through FlexApp, user data is saved in the cloud, and your reports of user experience, your baseline from Stratusphere is also located in cloud and centrally accessible, or on-prem and centrally accessible. You can use the cloud services here, or you can use on-premise, as you see here too, on-premises solutions, such as file servers and file shares. Now, once that is centrally accessible and available, the user is able to log in to any of the platforms you see at the full right at a moment's notice. So what we're doing is we're leveraging cloud or on-premises staging to be able to centrally access the data. And then the very next login, you can log in to your virtual desktop platform of choice, and you have a seamless environment. So for example, if you have users that need to go home on short notice to work from home, they can log into any of the cloud services and desktops you see to the right and be instantly productive. Next slide.
Sorry. And it's my slide. Thank you, Jason.
Thanks.
So I'll just address quickly two other important use cases around Stratusphere. So we talked briefly about capacity planning and assessments. Once you're in there, once you move to the environment or you implemented your plan, there is a need to support it. So one of the primary really use case of Stratusphere, and the reason we exist, to be honest, is the ability to monitor users, platform, infrastructures, and focus on performance. Quick use case around that are, first, be able to diagnose and troubleshoot a user that's running into a problem. Can't launch that application, can't access the desktop. Understanding why, where, who, and when gives you the ability and your level 1 and level 2 supports to quickly address that. This is valid from a single user perspective. It's also valid, and even more important, at least in my eyes, looking at a population of users or an entire infrastructures as a whole. Understanding when you start to see a bottleneck rise up. This could be a misconfiguration. This would be just after updating a base image. This could be just after moving to a cloud desktop platforms. Understanding quickly an issue or a source that will impact many users. So looking at it from a 10,000 feet overview, if you want, and understanding where is that starting from, when, and being able to anticipate issues or bottlenecks as they occur, or as they start to occur, when they start to impacting 5, 10, 20, 100, 1,000 users, be able to address that. So a big use case around Stratusphere is tracking user experience. So every metrics that will impact you from doing your job, whether it's the login time, the latency, the time it takes to launch an application, your mouse suddenly going into an hourglass and waiting for something to happen. Understanding what happened, when. So all the information tracked in Stratusphere is timestamped. So time is a big factor for us, because that's in some cases what we use to correlate the information and understand impact. And then being able to drill down and understand who's impacted, what's impacted, and more importantly, the root cause. Third and last, probably not the most important in our scenario of use case around Stratusphere, but still important in some cases, it's the ability to leverage those user experience metrics to validate a change. So we have an index in Stratusphere called VDI UX. It's basically a composite index, a score if you want, or a grade, that we assign every hour to every machine, every user out there. So you might be a plus at some point, and then when you're having problem, you might drop down to a C minus, just to give you some example. Now this could be leveraged in different ways. One way we talked about is to use that as the starting point to detect and troubleshoot a problem. This could also be used as a more proactive ways to measure the impact of a change. You just move from one OS to another one. You move from physical desktop to cloud desktop. You just change the base image of a VDI or a Citrix hosted application, XenApp environments. What are the impact on the end user? Now, granted, in our scenario where we're more into a business continuity sense, you may not care if your logging time drops from 25 seconds to 35. This might be acceptable. Nevertheless, the ability to know about it is important because the information will allow you to make those decisions. Moving from 25 to 37 logging time may not, you may decide in your line of business, given the situation, that is acceptable. But if that logging time moved from 25 to 5 minutes, you have a bigger problem. And maybe 5 minutes is still acceptable given the scenario, but understanding at every level, and of course we're going to do that at every angle, every metrics that impact performance, whether it's latency, connection, application usage, etc., etc. So understanding the impact allows you to either validate a change, or it might be the trigger to roll back to what it was before. Now, part of the initiatives that Jason alluded to and the efforts we undergo to respond to customer increased needs, we did a couple things. And one of the initiatives we did was to quickly come up with custom dashboards or reports that to address the current scenarios. And what after receiving a number of calls and discussing with customers and reacting, we took the time basically after the end of week 1 to try to understand what were the common threads or common needs. And the bottom line is, what we felt was needed at first was to answer those basic questions. Okay, I just sent all my users home. Are they able to connect? Are they capable of connecting? And when they do, if yes, are they able to work? And that's more in the lines of, do they have access to the application, the critical application to their business? And then finally, are they able to function? Is the environment they're in so slow that they can't do their work, or are they actually able to function? So we came up and created a number of tailor-made custom reports to address that we've made available to customers in those scenarios. And I have a couple slides to show them, but I figured it might be easier if I show those reports directly live. So this one, I'll show you 3 views, designs or organized based on the profile of the people that are going to use that. That first one is really the high level, more the executive level view of the environments. And as you'll see, it's designed to answer some very basic questions. This is designed to quickly give executive in your organization, IT, but not just, other executive, a pulse of how your company is doing. So it's really designed to tell you what portion or how many users are actually connected. What are the number of users that are at risk or experiencing problems? So this is more designed to highlight of potential issues when they rise, so that could trigger action or give priority. A view into capacity. So now that may vary depending on excuse me, the environment you have on the backend, whether it's VDI or cloud. So bottom line, give access to those quick information so they have the answer they need. And I actually love the feedback from one of the customer we had, which the value they saw in that report was, and I'm quoting, but I won't say woo, to get the management off his back so he can do his work. So never underestimate the benefits of reducing the number of status reports you have to send, or just answering the phone 3 times just to say, yeah, we know about the problem, we're on it, or yes, we have that many user connected. This is designed so it's a passive dashboard, obviously, but it could be drilled into. So executive can kind of take a look and understand how the situation evolves over time. The second part is more about post-mortem or after the case analysis. This is all about traceability. And once the situation is over, start to give a trace back ability to look back, and when the urgency is gone, have the time to review the scenario and look at how did we handle this, where can we improve, where did we react in the right way, and so on and so forth. So learn from the experience. Now that was the first level. The second level is, the second dashboard is more tailored towards IT management, obviously. This is not something that's designed for a level 1, level 2 supports to act, but this is something that should give IT management or the owner basically of the infrastructures the ability to quickly assess when, frankly, something go bump into the night. Where I'm at, what are the top issues I need to address? Is something else came up that I need to react quickly? So still dashboard, still passive, still dynamic in the exploration, but the idea here is detect problems. So we're more now into the drill down. We saw in the first level reports that we're just going to report, hey, I have X number of users at risk. Here we're going to tell you where and why, so you can start to see you can start to see patterns and adjust resource where need be. The last one is completely interactive, and now we get into the product itself. So those are not passive dashboard. This is the full product, and we just want to show a couple of use cases. We built a couple dashboards specifically for the scenarios. Those ones are designed to be used by level 1 and level 2 supports. And the whole idea here is to give the ability to react to a scenario, so that you can understand where my problem is coming from, and you can start to drill down into an issue when need be, and understand not only that at this point we're more into not a reactive mode but an investigative mode, understanding why do I have the issue, but more specifically not the fact that I have a user that have an issue, but that issue is tied to paging or swapping, or its application that are crashed. From there, you can actually the dashboard is built to actually being completely interactive. So it could trigger the point from a drill down mechanism that allows you to zoom into a problem or a user or a time or an application, and quickly understand, be able to really drill down the issue and says, okay, that user is having a problem. I need to see what machine he was using, what application he was running, and I won't go through the full blown demo, but you can see where this is triggering basically a troubleshooting help desk scenario. So all the way from high level visibility down to IT management detects the problems or a trend, and first level support being able to react quickly and intercept the problem or address the problem as they occurs. Let me go back to the deck. So that was a quick overview of what we've done from a initiative we took from a pure reporting, visibility, and troubleshooting perspective. Back to you, Jason.
Great. So that covered the leg of once you're in production, how do you troubleshoot? And let's keep talking about production. How do you deliver the apps that remain agile? Now, if you had already been using our Flex app application attachment, application layering, as the market has also called it, it can deliver apps to your existing Windows deployment, and it can also deliver it if you adapt to a new one. And the applications themselves will adapt, and they'll continue to function across Windows operating systems and can be pulled down from the cloud to other desktops. So for example, if they logged off of an on-prem Citrix solution this past Friday and you had to roll out and add users to a different solution such as Amazon Workspaces, you could indeed deliver the same apps without repackaging them across to something like Amazon Workspaces. Or if you deployed Microsoft WVD or Citrix Azure, leveraging some of your WVD entitlements, the applications could indeed come across, and you have seamless, as well as the profile, as we mentioned earlier. What FlexApp allows you to do is it allows you to containerize applications on a VHD that are hosted in a file share. And that file share could also be on object-based storage through any of the major cloud vendors, such as Google, Amazon, or Microsoft. It allows you to quickly deliver an app to an existing Amazon Workspaces, Citrix, or VMware Horizon environment, and also to well-managed physical desktops included. And it allows you to assign those to unique users. So you can still do a department by department. Now, think about this in our current situation. Maybe you already have a Citrix environment. that was up and running, and you quickly had to do some burst scaling. You wanted to add users to it, but do you need to design new base images and things like that? New silos for each individual department? Not with FlexApp. You can actually attach applications to an existing Citrix or any of these other environments, and then add users, and through context-aware settings, they'll get only the applications they need. That helps you to deploy very, very quickly at the times you need to scale up, add users without having to worry about the administrative backend, attaching applications and then assigning them based on session isolation, isolating them from between user sessions to where one user doesn't see the apps that another user has, even if they're on the same Citrix XenApp virtual apps server. This FlexApp, it complements other strategies. So if you're doing SCCM deployment or MSIX app attach, we work with those strategies as well. Easy to update, easy to deploy. It actually gives you, the ability to streamline base image management extremely, because as said, you can leverage existing Citrix deployments, Amazon deployments, etc., and just add the applications as needed and add users on a context-aware basis. Next slide. So here's some of the use cases again summarized. You can easily augment your current deployments of XenApp, Microsoft WVD if you've already started trying that, Microsoft RDS deployments, Amazon Workspace as an app stream, or VMware Horizon and RDS, among others. We're mentioning the most popular ones here. Got a screenshot over here from this past week of some work that we've done with Amazon's AppStream 2.0. Now that is a server-based computing type product that can publish applications. If you're familiar with that from other approaches through RDS, through Citrix XenApp. In this case, the screenshot here is from an AppStream 2.0 from Amazon deployment. This AppStream server has 0 applications in it. All these applications are being brought in this case, through this Amazon client, new client in AppStream 2.0 through FlexApp. It's a very generic server, Windows server on the back end, publishing these applications, and all of them are made possible through FlexApp. In the live environment, you can add applications to this. You see the refresh button that looks like 2 arrows in a circle on the 3rd row? That's specific to where we can set up our FlexApp engine in this way, where you hit refresh and it will actually add applications to the environment, or you can set this on a context-aware basis to check for applications every 15 minutes. This is just one example how you can deliver applications very, very quickly to your users to be able to work from home in time of crisis. You can also do this for full-blown desktops as well, where it shows up as native applications on the desktop and the user knows no different. They're actually coming in from object-based storage, for example, and you'll see a quick demo of that here in a second. Next slide. All right, if you'll play this is a quick condensed demo of both Profile Unity and FlexApp, making for a very seamless approach. What if you had to deliver something like a Windows remote desktop very quickly? In this case, Microsoft WVD. You gave the user a shortcut and you said, here's your desktop. But perhaps you didn't quite have all the pieces they needed to be productive. What they would end up is a desktop just like this. A generic profile would be set up, and then only the applications in the base image, in this case, Office, are in here. Now that's good, but what about all the applications they need to do their job? All the vertical applications, none of them are in here. Their user persona is not in here. Their email settings aren't in here. This is going to be very frustrating for the end user. So we're going to sign off of this. Let's pop into Profile Unity real quick. We're going to deploy a configuration that's going to give you a robust profile. It's going to apply to the new environment. Profile Unity had already run these configurations basically on your legacy PCs and picked up the user profile. It started making applications portable through our FlexApp application attachment engine. And this is what the console looks like to the administrator. And we have a quick start guide and guided configurations that can get you started with exactly what I just talked about and what I'm about to show. So we've got some Flex apps in here. We've got 2 sets of them, multiple Flex apps. Some of them apply at boot time. Some of them apply only when the user clicks on the application. But the point is, you're going to see a user log back into this WVD environment, the same exact desktop that was very, very vanilla looking, that was a generic desktop, and this could be Citrix, this could be Amazon Workspaces, this could be VMware Horizon, the same desktop. We're going to log back in here, and their persona is going to come across. The applications they need are going to come across in seconds, and it's going to be compatible with other profile technologies such as FSLogix. So you see that the FSLogix profile was mounted, and now that you'll see Profile Unity start to do its magic, FSLogix mounted, and you'll see that Profile Unity is going to do its magic. And in this case, it's going to be a very familiar desktop to the end user. It's going to look much like the one that they logged off of on Friday. And now they're being asked to log into a virtual desktop. Look at all the applications that hit the desktop. Every one of those being brought in by FlexApp. Now the user can be entirely productive. You remember Microsoft Office is in the base image of this. We'll log into that in just a second. But when you open up applications, and we'll open up Notepad++, a small one here, but they all perform very, very quickly. Notepad++ is attached from a VHD stored on Azure in this case. And it works seamlessly. We've also got some other apps in here like Microsoft Edge Chromium browser. It's being attached only when the user clicks on it. And again, it works and reacts seamlessly. The user persona is in here, their email settings, everything they need. This is the exact same desktop and base image, except now the user has all the apps they need in it. They're going to be transportable across this environment to a Citrix environment to a physical environment, and it will follow the user. Let's open up Outlook. This is in the base image, Outlook is, but you'll see even WebEx is in here. Meet Now, that Meet Now icon, WebEx is brought to you in this demo as a Flex app. It works seamless with the environment. It works and reacts just the same way as if it had been installed. Even these add-ins and plugins, you can schedule meetings, for example. You can do all the things that you needed. So if you left work on a Friday and you were on-prem, you could have joined that network on a Monday on short notice and be working from home. In this case, with Microsoft WVD, same goes if you had to do burst scaling for your Citrix environment and add new users and have applications and the persona follow the user. So that's a quick demo of FlexApp and Profile Unity. Now I believe we're going to move back into some of the use cases on the next slide, Thomas.
Yep. Let me see if I can
It'll
stop
end shortly.
this demo.
Yeah.
There we go.
All right.
All right.
So, yep. Let's talk about that customer spotlight that we were so looking forward to.
Thank you, Jason. So we've talked a lot in theoretical, so time to share a little bit on the practical side. We decided to share this spotlight customers when we went through this exercise in the past. It's going to be almost 2 weeks now. So they're a fairly large company worldwide, 70,000 employees, and in 2020 they had the plan to move about 10,000 users to a Citrix environment running on Azure. In Q4 last year, we completed a POC and pilot of Profile and Profile Unity and FlexApp. So they had some knowledge of the environment and the tools. Now, Azure and Citrix were already operational. They had a number of XenApp servers running on Azure, but it wasn't production ready, and more importantly, it wasn't at scale. March 8th, which was a Sunday, they decided, executive decision came on to execute their business continuity plan. And the primary target, immediate target, was to move about 2,000 users, some of them in India, some of them in Europe, and about 700 from the US that had to find a solution to work from home. They didn't have the ability or the application from the existing laptop or desktop to actually operate. So we got a call on Sunday and asking us to help them set up Profile Unity to be operational. And the target was to be operationally ready, production ready, sorry, by March 11, which is Wednesday. So we got a call on Sunday and we had to be ready on Wednesday. So
you had some things in place. You'd done a proof of concept. They were already thinking in this direction, right? But the current coronavirus work from home sped things up dramatically, right?
Correct. That's correct.
And this is a big shipping and logistics company. I mean, they could not have interruptions to help the world go on, and they had users everywhere, including remotely on boats, on ships connected to the internet in different ways.
That's absolutely true. And they got impacted because of their profile, they got impacted, I want to say, harder and faster than other countries that may have only their operation in Europe or only their operation in the US. They had, as you can imagine, from a shipping company perspective, Asia Pacific is a big hub for them. So they saw this coming and they triggered they triggered decision what I would imagine is relatively quickly. But you brought a very good point, Jason, because I don't want to make it sound like magic. They had the premises in place to make it achievable. So they already had an Azure account. They already had some VM running in Azure. They already had Citrix set up, a number of servers running on Azure. So a big chunk of the infrastructure needed was already in place. It wasn't production ready. And I don't want to undermine or minimize the efforts that the entire team went through to be production ready. We were an essential but small part of the process. Profile Unity and FlexApp had been tested, so that was probably the biggest thing we had going for us. But for all intents and purposes, we started from scratch. They could not use the POC environment they had and suddenly transfer that as a production. So we started from scratch. Really what happened, I could almost give you an hour by hour. After getting the call, the first thing we took care of is the license. So on Sunday, we're able to issue a 30-day license covering their entire operation. Once they got the license, the customer, our main contact, actually went ahead, re-downloaded Profile Unity and installed it. So that took him about an hour to have the application. And so day one was Monday. On day one, we focused on just getting up and running. We installed Profile Unity, configure it in the production environment. And we focused on enabling one thing, just one thing, Profile Disk. The main idea here was that on Wednesday, when they're possibly, we didn't know at the time, possibly would trigger the decision to send them home, they need to be operational. They could not afford to have an environment that was temporary in nature. So they need an environment that would be durable and permanent. So Profile Disk was a decision to give them access to their settings, the data, and application. So we went through that. That was day one. Day two, we updated the golden image on the Citrix servers. Make sure we went and did the initial tested. Small story actually here is, and there was lesson learned, but more from the vendor like us rather than the customer. At that time, we had a micro feature released that supported VHDX. I won't get into detail, but we deliver FlexDisk and FlexApp through VHD format. VHDX is simply faster, easier, next generation. The feature went through QA and has been tested. So we were confident to use it. But in this specific environment, there was other consideration. They had a fairly secure requirement in terms of access, went through Kerberos and CAC authentication for some region of the world. Our QA missed that very unique scenario, and we failed. We had issues. So no problem. We were able to revert back to the traditional VHD. It took us maybe 20 minutes. But the lesson learned I learned from that sounds stupid, but I'll say it is, don't try new stuff, especially in a business continuity. Now is not the time to try new stuff. So we reverted back to our GA version, all standout. Yeah, we're not using VHDX. We're using just VHD. That's perfectly fine enough. And actually, after the fact, we realized that the VHDX speed benefit doesn't apply into Azure. So there was no upside anyway to test it. So that was day two. Day three, we're production ready. We started to load the initial testers, all thumbs up, all green. I believe they had the initial, on those 3 days, they had no problem, and I have to send kudos to that, no problem getting all the extra VMs needed from Microsoft on Azure. And the feedback I received, I was not directly involved, so I have no vested interest, was that Microsoft has been tremendously responsive in giving them a big burst into VM capacity that needed it. That became more complicated, I believe, the weeks after that, as other companies kind of jumped ship and started to jump into. But as far as I know, as of today, They had a little bit of delays getting the additional use case, additional VMs, but Microsoft came through and they have the capacity they need. So I know there's concerns out there about cloud capacity and the ability to digest the spike or the peaks in request. So far, from this customer's perspective, yeah, it wasn't, the week 2 wasn't as fast as they wish it was, but they were able to get that. After Wednesday went on, they actually went live. I'm not sure exactly. I put day 5. I think it was either Thursday or Friday the same week. That's when the first hundreds of users came on board. So obviously we're monitoring that fairly not on an hour-to-hour basis. We didn't want to impede the customer. They had other things to do, as you can imagine, but we're keeping a close eye on that. So everything went well. Weekend went through the weekend, and then last week we that's when we actually started to expand the use case as new needs came up. So the first one that really came up is FlexApp. In order to enter the priority, they had to basically put on their golden image the critical application they need to do their business. So as you can imagine, Office application, Teams, there's a number of vertical applications specific to them, but they put the core minimum required. As new use case came from different regions, they started to have to handle the request. At this point, you just brought on board a number of users. You don't want to risk the existing user you just brought on board by adding an application to the golden image. There's 2 risks to that. One is downtime. You don't want to add more downtime that what you've already been through, bring down the golden image, updating it, restarting it. The second one is pure application conflict. Without testing, without proper, without going through the what I would call the traditional application validations and production cycle, going UAT, going performance testing, there was no easy and quick way, and more importantly, secure way to add application, just throw application in the golden image. So FlexApp was added. Actually, it was already there, but we started to deploy packaging console and start packaging app and adding them on the fly, adding them for the developers in that place, and so on and so forth. So FlexApp started to become more important, and they're continuing to do that. I was actually on the call this morning to look at developer app, one of those nasty app that does many things, and seeing how we can add it easily. The other thing that we worked on last week, or they worked on really, we're just supporting them to be clear, is adding additional configuration features. So FlexDisk benefit is it gives you it's a snap-in profile, gives you everything they need in one place. But then decide to look at that and says, well, we want to start implementing more security or regional features. One of the requirement, for example, was the ability to change language and currency for some of their application and their OS based on the region. 22 different currency if you want to know. And so they started to add those incrementally by adding different configuration rules in Profile Unity. So now we started to work with 2 configuration. One, which is the basic one, just profile disk is in there. Everything you do moving forward is saved and configured. So if you relog to a different machine, log to a different server, it's going to follow you. You don't have to repeat the process every day. All the documents all the data you create, consume, or edit moving forward is managed and is secure. Adding new configuration, so now you can adapt to the different use cases and adjust and fine tune if you want the configuration. Last 2 things we started to work on is one of them was they were part of the customer that sent us feedback on the initial dashboard and visibility. As you can imagine, critical for them to keep an eye on the situation. So we're implementing that. And we actually started to talk about 2 things. One of them is the way back, the migration. So in all the use case we talked about so far, we talked about assessment, we talked about migration. None of those 2 use cases applied in that scenario. No time to do migration, no time to do assessments. However, the first we're going to start the tries and the test on that next week, I believe. One of the use case and one of the reason we started to talk about migration is the migration back. Some of those users if not most of them, I don't have all the details, are not going to stay there. This environment right now, the initial plan, Citrix on Azure, this environment is not designed for them. It's designed for another use case, another 10K users. So right now, the 2,000 users using the environment right now are using an environment designed for somebody else. The current plan of the organization is to revert back to the previous environments when this is over. So now the challenge it poses, okay, how do you go back? You now has, depending on point in time, two different profiles, two different set of data that are separate in time and place. You have the existing one, which is still back in the office, and you have your new one moving forward. How do you reconcile that after? Profile Unity is going to be used to actually sync back the profile from the period of time they've spent on this environment back to the original one. So when they finally go back and resume business as normal, they haven't skipped a bit. It will integrate what they've done before, what they're currently doing back into their profile. Another thing we implemented that's probably not in there is, again, not to get too geeky because I'm getting into too much details, but one of the initial testers, they've tried everything, and one of the things that's true is like things never happen as you want. So they had to make some radical change. As a result, some of the initial 100 testers had profile disk that included settings and data that was not supposed to be there. This was due to, I won't get into details, but change in XenApp, they had to include desktop, a non-persistent desktop into the mix for some of the users, so it was moving everywhere. And then that's when they realized that they don't have a backup for their backup. They just implemented their business continuity planning. What if something goes wrong? So we trigger another configuration, another set of rules in the existing configuration using what we call portability settings. So portability settings allows us to move, sync, or simply back up your profile, not using profile disk, so not so much as a snap in, snap out profile, but more I would call the traditional way. We take those, zip them, compress them, put them as profile, as file that we save into a different file share. Yep. So implemented that as a backup so that should something happen to this environment, they have a fallback.
Right. The same approach would go true for FSLogix too if you were running it in tandem. Yep.
Exactly that. And even worst case scenario, they can hydrate an FSLogix profile container if they need to. So it gives them great flexibility in the ability to support their users.
Yeah.
Lesson learned. I just want to wrap up on that. Obviously, this is fairly recent. So lesson learned is something we've learned as we go, and it's still fresh in our minds. So I wanted to share a couple of things that hopefully will be useful for some of you. The first one was the primary priorities. When business continuity comes into play, it was interesting to hear from them what was the primary focus, and it was connectivity and application access. Everything else is secondary. I want to give them access to their desktop and the application they need. Flexibility moving from there was a critical component. As I said before, it never goes exactly according to plan. They never foresaw the need to add non-persistent VDI on top of their mix. And I'm probably skipping 100 different things that didn't happen to play. One thing that was big for us is the ability to add those rules and to have different rules or different application and different filters. Filters was a big thing for us because even though they had one rule fits all, then you started to appear different rules for different regions or different job profile or different departments. The ability to filter them out or execute something for some but not the other was becoming primordial for them. So they can address the mass. Once they focus on priority number one, then they can address the subcategory and address that. I truly believe that the one thing, the methods or the approach that really made this doable in such a short time frame was a layered approach. What I mean by that is not so much on FlexApp, although that was a critical piece, but instead of trying to solve and boil the ocean and address every single scenario one after as one, they really took the approach as big steps or phase. Okay, phase one, we just want we want each user to have something they have access to that's persistent, durable, and practical. Application access and accessibility. We have the capacity, good, do that. Then they layer the Flex app on top of that. Then they layer the additional configuration. And that gave them so much, I think it helped the team keep their sanity, as they were not trying to support everything. And obviously we were not internal to the communication, but the way I believe they handle that is clearly communicate to the customers, meaning employees or users, hey, by this date, you'll have this. Don't worry about that. We'll take care of it on that date. And so it was kind of a ramp up of infrastructure for the users, taking care of the priority first, then adding, yeah, I know you don't have application B, so for now, don't do that. We'll have that one next week, and so on and so forth. Not a one-way street was a big one. I talked already about that, but it really hit me. Until now, as a software vendor, we always thought, we always think moving forward. And it never hit my mind until last week when we started talking about it, that I always picture, yeah, you're moving to Citrix on the cloud, great, you're going to stay there. We always look at, bigger, better, more recent. We always think about the next version, etc. In their case, it's not true. So every time there is a scenarios like that, thinking on the way back was a very early subject for them. It's kind of like, you don't go into a room without knowing where the exit is, so you know how to exit that scenario. So that was a big lesson learned, at least from me. And last but not least, we couldn't stop asking the customer after the fact, after the first week. It's like, all right, so you've just added a product that you did not purchase, went through a POC, and is not in production. So if I'm in the shoes of the CIO or the CEO, why would I put a product that I don't have in my stack of tools that has been quote unquote validated? I don't have it in production. I don't have bought it. Why did you pick Profile Unity and Flex App? And their answer was many different words, and there's many different reasons. But the one thing and I just wanted to put the focus on that, one thing that struck me is that for them, it was simple. It allowed them to isolate one function, which is application profile data delivery, into a single tool that will take them across all phases and all platform. For them, it was worth it because it simplified the approach. Instead of having to handle one tool or one view for this scenario, physical, desktop, going back, migration, moving from a multi-session Windows 10 into a non-persistent VDI, and so on and so forth, to simplify all that into a single pane of glass, it actually simplified a lot, removed a lot of complexity, a lot of moving parts, and a lot of possible frictions. So that was a big thing that I thought was important.
Yep. That's such a great case study, and one we were able to help with. And we'd love to help. We'd love to help anyone on today's call. The thing is if something comes to mind, and is what the real estate market likes to say is like every situation is different, right? To call a realtor near you. We feel like that, the things that we've touched on today with the parts of your project, whether you are planning, onboarding, or in production, we'd be glad to help you in any way possible. Just reach out and let us know. Perhaps we have questions right now, Ray, we can go to.
Yeah, there's a couple of them coming through. Someone from Holland had asked, like many others, we were forced to allow our employees to work from home. Now the employees are home with their laptops. Is your product working on fat clients? And if so, how easily is it to get your product UX working on those devices that are now outside our network?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's
Go ahead, Thomas.
Sorry, that's a great question. So yes, Stratusphere is designed to work on any platform. So I'll just start by the basics. Yeah, or agent can be installed on the FAT client as well as virtual. So there's no limitation here. This can be pushed, by the way, silently. The customer typically have tools like SSCM and Altiris that allows them to push updates to their OS or updates application. Same process here. You don't want to change what you've been doing before. You can use the same. If you don't have a tool, we've used in the past, there's a free tool from Microsoft that allows you to push that agent. So that's from the setup perspective. Now, from an operation perspective, you're either in VPN or outside VPN. Stratusphere will handle both. There is actually a blog that was created. I'll try to see if we can put that either in the chat or we'll do that in the follow-up. But if you go to liquidware.com and click on our blogs, you'll find a blog that describes exactly how you can set up Stratusphere outside your DMZ. So you can have Stratusphere set up so it will receive communication outside your corporate network and outside firewall, and so you can support customers regardless of where they are and how they connect. The communication between our agents and Stratusphere is done through HTTP 443. So you don't require to punch hole in the firewall that you wouldn't want to do anyway.
Yeah, great. Great.
All right, someone else asked, what if someone has a clean desktop? And they go on and say, I'm assuming that this does not matter. The access to custom apps via the profile can be via any method, for example, Windows Start Bar, etc.
Yep, so clean desktop is the best desktop for FlexApp in particular, if that's what the question's about. We like to say FlexApp is even compatible with well-connected, well-managed desktops, and that's usually the corporate setting and the corporate desktop. When we're delivering remotely in the field and work from home, today the best solution is to do that through a virtual desktop like VMware, Citrix, something like that, and you're going to have your better performance connecting through a session like that rather than supporting a physical desktop remotely to home. There's very many variables there, and the pipe may be slow to get the FlexApp there. Now, there are some one-off things that we can do to roll out FlexApps, even if you're not connected to a Active Directory environment. But today they're not supported. We'd be glad to talk to you about how to trial those if you'd wish to trial those with us.
All right. I'm not seeing any other questions at this point in time. I know that we have the listing of resources here, and some of this we've talked a little bit about, our support and how you can reach out and get extended temporary licenses and set up assistance. Our community site is a great place as well to reach out and discuss with experts and other users about different topics out there. Also, we have a link to our free licenses out there as well. One more thing I wanted to point out is on our website and our webinar archive, there's a lot of great resources out there, and there's some specific webinars that might help you as you're going through out there. I know I've talked to some of our solutions architects over the last few days, and they've been spending a lot of time talking to people saying, hey, we've had this up and running, and now that we're having everybody working from home and whatever, how do we help tune the performance and whatnot? And we've got some great webinars out there that deal with those topics out there. So I suggest maybe take a look at some of those as well. That will help with that. Then there's a couple more questions that kind of came in here. One said, can you repeat the non-add domain computers management?
Yeah, there is a method that we've been exploring even as of this week, and it's not a supported method right now, but we can attach FlexApps to that, and even more reliably MSIX or AppV applications, and we'd be glad to discuss. If that can help you immediately right now with your work from home plans, reach out to us and let us know. We'd be glad to let you trial that and see if it works for you. It's not a fully supported method, although we're seeing very reliable connections. I've had an application open all morning that was rolled out that way on a machine that is not domain connected, and it's open right now. As a matter of fact, as I'm looking at that application on my desktop. Look for more of that from us in the future and through a community-based approach, because there's a little bit of scripting involved and some other things. But look, if you're in a bind, you need to deliver an application to your users very quickly, reach out to us and let us know. We've got a couple SEs that may be able to help you out do that.
Okay, great. So I think that pretty much handles all of our questions. There's a few comments in there, and I'll make sure that those get filtered on to the right people. But before we log off, just a reminder, today's session was being recorded. We'll send that out with a copy of the links of a lot of the things that we've talked about to you for further resources on this topic via email. Also, we are launching, and this is brand new as of today's webinar, on our social media platforms on Twitter and Facebook. We want to know, how do you work from home? This is something that's a little more fun, something out there. All we're asking is for you to go ahead and take a picture of you working from home, your setup, and post it on Facebook or Twitter. Add the tags hashtag Liquidware and hashtag WFH. And we'll find those, we'll message you and get your information, and we're going to go ahead and send you some prizes out to your remote office, your work from home place, for something nice and a little perk. So go ahead and take those pictures, send them, be creative as you want, fun, realistic, doesn't really matter. Just keep them somewhat safe for work, and we're looking forward to seeing some of those. Plus, we're also going to have some of our own Liquidware people be posting out there as well. So if you're ever curious about our setups and how we're set up out there, go ahead and check those out as well. So with that said, hope everyone's doing well, hoping everyone's staying strong out there. And thank you, Jason and Thomas, for today's great presentation. Once again, if you have any questions for us, please refer to the places that we mentioned, or reach out to us at sales@liquidware.com. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks.